But it was really fun to learn chess for the show because I kind of could experience it as Beth does the first time that she walks into the tournament hall and she sees that this is a world. I kind of had that same excitement. So yeah, and we had such wonderful teachers as well. We had people that cared so much and are so good that they weren't going to let us make fools out of ourselves, you know. So I think we all felt very safe.
I'm a Verizon engineer. We built our 5G nationwide so millions of people could do what they love in Verizon 5G quality. And in parts of many cities, we have ultra wideband, the fastest 5G in the world. This is 5G built right, only from Verizon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to PaleyFest. I am Stacey Wilson-Hunt, and I'm delighted to be your host today for this very special conversation celebrating Netflix's Golden Globe winning limited series, The Queen's Gambit. Before that, I'd like to offer thanks to PaleyFest's official card, Citi. A very special welcome to Citi cardholders who may be watching, and a thank you to festival sponsor Verizon for making this possible. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce talent joining us today to talk about The Queen's Gambit. Executive producer, William Horberg. Hi, William.
Hey, Stacey. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. Series star and Golden Globe winner, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Hi.
Hi. Marielle Heller.
Hi.
Hello, Marielle. Moses Ingram. Hi. Thomas Brody Sangster.
Hello.
Hello. Harry Melling.
Hi.
Here he is. And Bill Camp. Hi, Bill. Bill and his new beard, which we're all loving, by the way. Thank you for being here.
It's an old beard. It's not new.
Well, it's new to all
It's
your
an
fans.
old man beard. Not a new beard.
I wanted to congratulate you firstly on your Golden Globes wins, and what an amazing night. I'm sure a very strange virtual celebration for everyone, but very deserved. In such a strange time, for this show to have taken hold in the most zeitgeist of zeitgeist ways as a global phenomenon, how did that feel last fall? And maybe I'll start with Anya. That first weekend, and as you started to see the social media sort of traction that the show was getting, when did you realize that this was officially a phenomenon?
I think it took me a solid 2 months, really.
2 months, really?
Well, yeah, because I was filming in Northern Ireland and I spent all my days barefoot in -3-degree weather on the side of a mountain. So it's very difficult for that to work out in your brain. But yeah, 2 months after that, I got to LA and I took a walk and I just saw this giant poster and I was like, oh my God, wow. That's a real thing. But it does feel really special because I think there is something to be said about the story of an outsider who is trying to connect, being the thing that connects people when they're unable to connect with each other. So I do think that is pretty special.
Very much so, and definitely a lot of themes that have resonated this year with a lot of people. And William, I'd love to start with you. I know this series had a long journey from Walter's book, which came out in the 80s. And I was fascinated to learn that he also wrote The Hustler and Color of Money. What a disparate sort of range, and what an incredible range for a novelist. Tell me the biggest challenges you faced in bringing this story to life for the screen. I know at one point you considered a feature. What led you down the path to make it in a limited series, which I think we all agree was sort of the best format for telling this story?
Well, there's a delicious irony that a story that took 30 years to get made somehow came into the world at the perfect time. This market didn't exist when this journey started. There was no Netflix, there was no Hulu, there weren't streaming services.
It was really birds and thornbirds, really, as sort
I mean, there was barely an internet, probably.
Right.
So yeah, the whole initial phase of it was trying to make it as a feature film. There was a feature script. It wasn't a bad script. It kind of by nature had to reduce the story, and it kind of leaned into a little bit of the underdog sports narrative, which is of course part of the book, but it wasn't really the thing that drew me to the book. It was just the unique Tevis creation of this really complex character of Beth Harmon. And of course, the longer limited series format allowed us to lean into that quite a bit more. So although initially Scott and I had been talking about making this as a movie, and we were kind of soundly rejected, I must say,
Really?
by
Why?
the world
Tell me
of,
about that. What was the rejection centered on?
well, it wasn't surprising to me. It wasn't perceived as material that was commercial enough to support the cost of it. It's not a story that kind of easily fits into indie low budget film model. It's period. It travels all around the world into some glamorous settings. It has a lot of crowds in it. So it just kind of cost more than people thought it could ever earn back. And yeah, we knocked on a lot of doors and, pretty much heard the same answer. There were a number of different interesting filmmakers who wanted to do it. But we kind of stopped, I would say, about 2009, 2010. And the big pivot was when Scott made Godless for Netflix.
Right.
And he called me up and, they had asked him what he wanted to do next. And he had asked me if the rights to Queen's Gambit were still available. And that was when he said, the way to do this is a limited series format. And that kind of unlocked so many things in terms of how it then proceeded to get made.
Wow, I love that. And hopefully another time you'll be able to tell us about how many people said they didn't want to make a movie starring a young woman playing chess, but that's for another day.
There was certainly a lot of that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, gosh, you certainly won in that capacity. And Anya, I would love to know, I remember interviewing you years ago, not that long ago, but it feels like years ago, for The Witch at Sundance. And I remember you brought such this incredible sort of mystical energy into the room. I remember saying, who is this person? She's so unique and has such an amazing maturity. And how old were you when you made that? You were still fairly young, right? And here you are having taken the helm of this piece. What struck you most when you read the script, but also what scared you enough to make you want to do it? Because clearly you're not afraid of challenge.
Well, first of all, nice to see you.
Yeah.
And that was a very, very special time in my life. So I'm glad that we got to share it. But I think, so there wasn't a script when I signed on. I signed on based on the book and on Scott.
Oh, great.
I think when I read the book, I connected with Beth so much that inherently scared me, because I think I've always acted from a place of empathy where I try and lose aspects of myself and bring, new people in. And for Beth, I was very aware immediately that I was going to have to show more of myself in order to tell the story right. And that inherently was a wonderful filming experience, because I've not had to try in that way. I just sort of showed up and did it. But at the same time, it's, it's exposing. You feel exposed, you feel vulnerable. But I had to tell it. I really, really felt I could tell the story right. And I think that we have a responsibility as performers that even if we're offered something, if we're not the right person to tell it, you have to let it go, even if it hurts, because the right person is supposed to tell that story. And for Beth, I really felt that I was the right person to tell it.
And I'm curious, what aspects of yourself were you afraid to show that you've just described? What elements? Is it maybe her disconnectedness, or what did you feel on that front?
I think it's the inherent loneliness, but also, those quiet moments that you have to yourself in your own hotel room that nobody else witnesses. I was putting them on screen for anybody to witness at any moment in time. So that was a little scary, but it never felt scary when we were filming it. It was only strange once the show came out, when I was like, oh, okay, that's going to be considered a Bethism, and that's good. I'm glad that it's seen as a Bethism.
Well, I love that. And thank you for being brave enough to reveal that part of yourself to us, because I don't think a lot of people realize how brave people must be to do this work. So congratulations for taking that risk. It's a huge risk. And now onto your co-star, Marielle. And actually, I first met you when you were breastfeeding your newborn baby, and when you had your first film, Diary of a Teenage Girl at Sundance. It all comes back to Sundance. And I remember being so struck and so impressed that this woman who had just given birth was promoting her movie and just no big deal while also feeding her child. So that's Marielle, pretty much.
I might be breastfeeding my newborn any minute. I might bring her in here. You never know.
Well, let us know if you need to take a break.
I will.
Having done so much directing in the last decade, how did it feel to return to your roots as a performer, but also relinquish that control that you had in your previous jobs and say, oh, I'm actually not calling cut. That's somebody else's job. How did that feel?
I mean, if it wasn't Scott, I think it would have felt very weird. All of us, I think, are really here because we knew and loved and trusted Scott, or got to know him and love him.
This is Scott Frank, for all those watching, incredible director and EP.
Yes, and the writer of the series. And he and I are buddies from Sundance. It does all come back to Sundance. He was an advisor of mine at the Sundance Labs when I went there for The Diary of a Teenage Girl, when I was workshopping it as a script. And we became friends and really were kind of director friends, and have maintained that relationship over the years. So I signed on to this with a lot of trust in him and thinking he was kind of crazy for believing that I should play this part. I was originally cast to play a much smaller part in the series, and then the actress who was going to play Alma fell out. And William here, somehow said to Scott, like, you keep talking about Mari, we should just make it Mari. And I thought they were both crazy for wanting me to do this. And but I also was so intrigued and excited about the part that I couldn't say no. And the thought of working with Scott and getting to not be in control actually sounded really fun.
You get to be talent, right? You get to be in a different place on the call sheet.
It was just a delight for me. I mean, directing is just so all-consuming. And there was an advisor at the labs who said something that stuck with me my whole life that I think about a lot as a director, which is not only are you in charge of everybody and everything that's happening on the set, but really it's your responsibility. If the person working at craft services is in a bad mood, chances are it trickled down from you somehow and you caused that bad mood. So everything is your responsibility at the end of the day. And to walk onto Scott's set and feel like nothing was my responsibility except this one job was just delightful.
Well, congratulations. And I was curious, in terms of Alma, what was your emotional entry point to her? Because she has a lot of relatability, but she also has a lot of problems that are hard to watch. And I'm wondering, which aspects of her did you feel you could bring to life?
I mean, the alcoholic housewife part was just like right there for me. No, but no, I think the thing that I found most empathetic about her and kind of loved about her was recognizing that she was somebody who could have had a very different life, but because of the era she was born in, she couldn't. She was so trapped and stuck. It reminded me of a doll's house or something, somebody who had a talent and was never able to really pursue it, who wanted more from her life and couldn't follow through with that. It made me feel very lucky for the time that I live in and for my own life. But I also felt like I could immediately imagine what that felt like, and that pain of being an artist, of being a musician who can't fulfill that dream. And then the fun moment of watching Beth's character follow her dream and go, oh, maybe life isn't over for me. Maybe I could have followed this dream more. I found that to be just a really empathetic trait that I could relate to, I could imagine.
Oh, I love that. Well, you brought a lot of beauty and grace to it. So congratulations. And Bill number 2. First of all, congratulations on the show. I've been a huge fan of yours for years, and you've kind of, made your bones as a theater guy. You're a New York guy, not really used to millions and millions and millions of people knowing who you are, I'm imagining. How has this felt for you at this point in your career to have played such an integral role in a series like this that has meant a lot, especially to young people?
It's a privilege. I can't really say much more than that. As an actor, it's a privilege to be able to be part of something that's obviously so successful, but also that has, meant so much to so many people on so many different levels because of the brilliance of everybody that's sitting on this panel and the rest of it, all the way down to the crew in Berlin. So it's, you know, as an actor, I can't really ask for much more than that. And I'm just really, you know, grateful that at this point in my life, and you know, I'm invited to do something like this and be part of it.
You're at the cool kids table, right?
He is the cool kid. We're at his table.
He
Right.
is the cool
lucky to
kid,
be at
for
his
sure.
table.
Well, and Bill
Bill
has
Camp was the first name that Scott Frank brought up to me, by the way.
really.
He knew that he wanted Bill to play Scheibel before he had even written a word. Yeah.
I love that. And there's something so special for me seeing a mentorship relationship between a man and a child that is loving, that's paternal, but also based on intellectual purism, if that's a word. The fact that he really respects her mind, and he's not trying to patronize her. He's not trying to control her. He really sees in her maybe his own unfulfilled potential. Is that what you also saw in your character?
I think, yeah, yes. I don't know how much how deep you want to go in terms of what he was seeing. I think it was just like you said, it was a mutual respect. It's he was offering her something that was unconditional, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that in itself was really what was driving him. You know, he wasn't looking for any kind of self fulfillment by offering this information and teaching her where to go, you know, in terms of his own, you know, self gratification of, oh boy, I could have been this, or living vicariously through her at all. I think that's probably just a projection of whoever watches it, and that's fine. But I think that he was just offering her, he saw her as someone that was going to be open to what he had to offer, and it was just purely unconditional. You know, I'm so surprised at how many people ask the question about why didn't, you know, was he upset about the $5 and, you know, the money that never came back? And that just sort of blows my mind that that's something that that would be concerning to people somehow. You know, that there's a
what people
I
would
get asked that
there's
a
the
lot.
economy of friendship, or there's the economy of partnership, or education, or teaching, or, you know, somehow there's economy in there and a deal making. And I don't think that had anything to do with any of it, you know.
Well, it just shows how programmed we are to expect certain things from narratives.
Sure.
And I think this show really destroys a lot of those preconceptions in the most beautiful ways.
I've had people yell at me across the street, why didn't you pay Mr. Scheibel back? And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. She meant, I don't know.
And you're thinking that's your takeaway from this piece? That's a strange takeaway, but okay. Well, congratulations again, Bill. Very happy for you.
Thank
and
you.
whatever your beard is going to be doing next, we will be also anxiously watching for that. And Moses, I wanted to wish you congratulations on, I know you're at the early stages of your career, but my goodness, what an audacious coming out on television, which has just been wonderful. And I think your character adds not only levity, but I think it's also a very beautiful relationship. And speaking of, we see Jolene and Beth bond very intensely and very immediately at the beginning, and then lasting throughout the years. What do you feel was the root of their connection, and how did you mine that for yourself as an actor to create that synergy that we see so beautifully on screen?
I think they could both identify with each other as like being outsiders and just feeling really separate and sort of like an outlier amongst everyone. I think that was the thing that drew them together. And I think that, you know, once Beth got to the orphanage, I think Jolene saw herself in some ways being new, being alone and having no one, and wanting to sort of be a buffer for this person, this little person to this other little person, you know. I think they saw each other.
And what did you learn about what life was like in that period for women, especially Black women, in that setting that really stuck with you that you have carried with you after making this film?
I think a lot of that story, like for me, like lives in my skin. Like a lot of things have changed, but many things have not changed. And I think it's very easy to imagine what it could feel like being the only person who looks like you in a place where no one knows how to do your hair, or no one knows, you know, what makes you feel beautiful. Like I'd imagine how unbeautiful Jolene must have felt in this place where everybody looks the same and you look different. Like how do you get to feeling beautiful? How do you get to feeling like yourself? Which is why I love when Jolene grows up and she's in her body and she's in her hair and the clothes and the heart, the spirit that has thrived through all that time. I think it's really beautiful.
And to see her show up at the front door and she's just fully fabulous. It's a great
In
moment.
her body, it's a great moment. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I think you did a beautiful job, and I can't wait to see what you do next as well.
Thank you so much.
And Harry, I wanted to talk to you. First of all, hello.
Hello.
So the show has been famously credited with depleting supplies of chessboards all over the world. I managed to get one right before the supply ran out, so I consider myself lucky. And by the way, I had played chess in elementary school. It is so hard. I had not played in like many, many years, and wow. So I wanted to know what your relationship was with chess before the show. And
yeah.
Are you now a formidable opponent, and do you continue to play, or did you have to take a break for a while?
So I knew nothing about chess when Scott presented it to me. I didn't know how to play. I didn't know anything.
Really?
So that was, nothing. Put a board in front of me, I wouldn't know what to do. So that was the first hurdle, really, to try and learn, not only learn how to play, but also to look like I played forever, really. So that was the first task. And it's so strange you mentioned the board, because there's a chess shop literally down the road from where I am. And before filming, I went in and spoke to the guy that ran the shop, and I explained what I was doing and so forth. And I bumped into him last week. He ran after me down the street and he said, thank you, because they haven't ever had this good a business in their entire career. Like all the chessboards are sold out. And he said, especially young women, young girls are going up, well, they can't now, but they're online buying chessboards. It's just amazing.
So great.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I love that. And Anya, of course, I can't talk about this without talking to you about your relationship with the game. Were you adept at chess, or did you also have to learn along the way?
Yeah, so I mean, number one, Harry, that's so cool. That's amazing. Yeah, I had never played. Same thing, wouldn't know what to do at all. But I had kind of like a strange fascination with the board. Like I'd always seen it and thought, that's something that's interesting.
It's a very beautifully designed game. It's very aesthetically beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely. But also, sometimes I'll get little feelings and I'm like, I feel like that's gonna be something to me at some point, but not now. I'm just like moving along on my merry way. But it was really fun to learn chess for the show, because I kind of could experience it as Beth does the first time that she walks into the tournament hall and she sees that this is a world. I kind of had that same excitement. So yeah, and we had such wonderful teachers as well. We had people that cared so much and are so good that they weren't going to let us make fools out of ourselves, So I think we all felt very safe.
I love that. And will you continue to play? And this is for everyone. Has this become something that you actually want to keep doing? Or are you sort of like, I need a breather for a while?
Well, lockdown was quite useful because we got the board out at the beginning of the first lockdown for us in London, and played a bit then. And I'm sure that's what lots of people are doing. I kind of think maybe there's a trend there with why the show had such attention.
We were literally stuck at home with nothing else to do. Right. And finally, and of course not lastly, Thomas, congratulations to you. Been a big fan of yours for a long time. So interesting to think about Benny and how many things he is to Beth. He's her opponent, he's her teacher, he's her friend, and obviously ultimately more than that. How meaningful was it for you to play a character like this who sees his female counterpart not as a threat, but as a peer and as an equal? Because these types of relationships or rapports between men and women on screen are actually still quite rare.
I think their relationship's got yeah, loads of little facets, and it's a fascinating little one, and it was a fun one to play around with, because they are opponents initially, and I think they still are. I think that's kind of part of the attraction, is that there is a kind of a competitiveness, a fightingness between them, and that kind of leads towards a spark of just kind of admiration towards people who are just equals or equally skilled. Well, at least when they meet, anyway. And she then goes on far ahead and succumbs to gets bigger than him. But I mean, I really enjoyed it. I loved working with Anya, and I loved he's just a fun character to play, really. And I think his kind of rock and roll 60s essence that he brings to the world is a cool combination when combined with the fact that he's also pretty bloody good at chess too. Yeah, they just bounce off each other, really. It's this kind of rivalry that's also there's a strange attraction there as well. And it was just fun to play. I think it's very cleverly written, really, so I didn't have to do too much.
Isn't that nice when you show up and you don't have to worry about the script?
Yeah, it's amazing. It makes it so much easier. If you get the casting right, you get a good script. I mean, it's easy.
Yes, well, and you all lucked out on that front. And I did want to make sure to have time to ask a question from festival sponsor Citi. And Citi would like to know, what trait or attribute of your characters was your favorite? And maybe it could be something that wasn't maybe their best quality. It could be their most glowing quality. And maybe I'll start with Anya on that front, because your character has so many qualities to choose from.
Yes, she is rather complex. I think something about Beth that I really admire, because I don't share it and I would really like to, is she has an ability to recognize when she's not somebody's cup of tea and not care.
Oh,
Like
I love that.
You know, it's just like, okay, you don't really like me, and that's fine. It doesn't really affect my life, and I'm going to go on and do whatever I want to do. And I think I'm somebody that enjoys pleasing people, so I would definitely love to have a bit more of that for myself.
I love that, and as would I. And how about you, Bill?
My gosh, his willingness to be anonymous.
I like that. Succinct. And Marielle, how about you?
I love the part of Alma that finds moments of being like a proud mama that sort of surprise her, where she has so many complex feelings about everything that's happening, and that there are these really genuine moments of feeling just pure pride and like maternal taking care of. I don't know, there's something about that quality that would always take me by surprise when we would find it in scenes, and always felt very precious, and then it would go away. It was like
right,
into it for a moment and then move on. But,
right.
I always loved those little moments.
Oh, that's pretty. And Harry, how about you?
I think probably his unselfishness. I think just how, certainly to as he goes through the journey of the series, his goodness and his honor. I think those are all qualities that I really thought were quite wonderful with him. Yeah.
And Moses, Jolene, who's again a lot to choose from.
Jolene has a line where she's like, "Fuck them if they can't take a joke."
Yeah.
I won't even tell the joke. I would love to be in a place where I could tell the joke and be like, "Fuck them if they can't take the joke."
So similar to Agnes then.
Yeah.
And then finally back to you, Thomas. You sort of hinted at a few of your character's favorite traits. What has stuck, when you think about him, what most sticks out for you?
His confidence and his unapologetic sense of himself, where his traits lie, and what he's good at and what he's not so good at, and where to show off and where to keep quiet. And his dress sense.
Yes, he really does change the paradigm for what a chess player looks like. There isn't just one way to look like a player.
You have to wear a knife.
Exactly. And William, I wanted to talk to you for a moment. The series, you know, amidst all the beautiful chess scenes and the wardrobe and the exotic locations, also it tackles a ton of very serious issues: addiction, grief, loss, just loneliness, as we've talked about. How important were these themes for you and Scott and your collaborators in not wanting to be too heavy-handed, but also presenting them in a respectful way, because you knew the responsibility and all the young people who would be watching this young character spiral, watching her mother figure unfortunately succumb to an illness. How much pressure did you feel, and how did you get around that and balance with the story?
Well, like everybody else has said, we're all here because of Scott Frank, and I've known Scott for more than 30 years, and he just has a gift. He really he's a wonderful, wonderful storyteller, as is Walter Tevis. I knew that he would be a good match for this material. I knew he'd find a way to balance the levity and the pathos, and to find those moments of grace and moments of humor, even in kind of the darkest corners of Beth wrestling with her demons, and also to put a lump in your throat when you least expect it, with things that are entertaining and suddenly more serious than you expected, and that's just a wonderful gift to have. He's got a real strong compass of tone. And I think this is really a triumph of tone, and he creates a wonderful family, both with the ensemble of actors, but also behind the camera. He has a humility that allows a lot of contributions and welcomes a lot of contributions from the artists that he surrounds himself with. And his whole thing is movies aren't made by department. It's all one thing, and he's just always getting everybody on the same page. And he also is very funny himself. So he kind of can create a tone with, behind the camera that I thought just was a wonderful atmosphere to work in. And the whole thing for us in adapting this book was, you read the book, there's a lot of chess in it, even like way more than we could fit into 7 hours of screen time. And so we were kind of obsessed with the emotional roadmap of the character's journey, informing all the choices around these chess games, because it wasn't ever really about people moving pieces around on a board. It was about, oh, this is the love story chess scene, or this is the you already lost before you sat down chess scene, and Scott really had a careful way that he thought about how to progress all of that and create a lot of variety to keep it interesting.
You've no doubt gotten tons of feedback from young fans about your work. Have you heard specific things from people about how you depicted her issues with drinking and pills? Have you learned about how this has impacted viewers? Because it is so important to see a young person struggling, but also to come out on the other side.
Absolutely. Again, I think, the time that we're living in, a lot of people are wrestling with their own personal demons because there's nobody else to wrestle with. You're just locked in your head. But much like we always wanted to make the chess scenes very different, it was incredibly important for the substance abuse scenes to be different, because we wanted to show what it is that she was getting out of it, or what it was that she was trying to get out of it. And the thing about substance abuse is that it works for a period of time. That's why people do it. It works. And then eventually it stops working, and then it completely derails your life. But something that Scott and I talked a lot about at the very beginning was, in a lot of films that I've seen that tackle substance abuse, usually something really bombastic and loud happens, and it's like, this is your rock bottom. And there's a beautiful, heartbreaking line that Harry says, that Harry and Harry say to Beth, where he's like, he'd just get quiet and he'd fall asleep in his clothes. And that reality of what it is to live with addiction, and that it's not this big rock and roll, I got drunk on a plane and woke up and lost, it's not that. It's like, no, it's you locked inside your house. Like it's that. And I think having that respect for the quiet sadness of it and the quiet despair, I think potentially people hadn't really seen that much of that, and it shone a light in a different way.
I very much agree, and it definitely avoided a lot of tropes that we've probably exhausted at this point on that front. And then finally, for anyone who, I don't know who this would be, but who hasn't discovered the show yet, what would you tell them to entice them to prioritize this and also make it what I would call like a family affair? I do think it's really important for fathers and mothers or whatever form your family takes to watch this with kids and say, look, you can do this. This is not just a character. You can pursue these types of dreams. So tell me a little bit how you feel and what you would tell people now to watch. Maybe I'll start with Mario.
Not that many people to tell. I feel like everyone I talk to has already watched the show.
Just a great problem to have, right?
But I do have a few friends who haven't watched the show, and I don't know, the way that I tell everybody is I just say, oh, I feel jealous of you that you haven't watched yet, because it's such a delicious show to watch. I mean, I got to be in it, but I felt like watching it was still a treat. It's so impeccably made. Every department, the cinematography, the design, the production design is so lush. It's so beautiful. You feel enveloped by the world. It's such a well-told story. The characters are so enticing, and you feel so connected to Beth, and you feel so connected to all of these characters in deep ways. But more than anything, I just think it's watching people who truly loved a story tell a story really well, and that is not always the case. And I just feel like it's a joy to watch.
Well, you can tell, and that joy emanates, I think. You can really feel the work that has gone into every aspect, from production design to costumes. We could do a whole other hour just on the clothes. I mean, my God, what incredible work on that front. And does anyone else have anything that they'd like to add, or what they hope that the audience has taken away from the show?
I think Mari hit on something very interesting when she said, you know, for a character that feels so alienated, because you're in her head, you are not alienated from Beth. You are with her every step of the way. And I think, at least for me, getting to spend 7 hours with a character that is interesting to me, but also makes me feel less alone, that's kind of the dream. And yes, as Mari said, like, this was, you know, this was our passion project. This was everybody's passion project. Everyone was so happy to be there. And obviously the success is wonderful, but as William says, like, who thought that the 7-hour girl chess thing was going to be what united the world, you know? So we weren't there for any other reason other than that we loved the story, and we really, really believed in these characters, and we really believed in the team. And I think you can feel that. You can feel the amount of passion that we put into it.
Well,
there's no algorithm in the world that would ever tell you, a corporation, to make the Queen's Gambit. It can't be written. And I think the beautiful thing about this kind of success is it was 1,000% word of mouth. It just dropped. They didn't really do a lot to pre-market it. It was just people telling other people, you gotta see this. I know it's about chess. I know, you know, it's kind of like, forget all of that. You just gotta see it.
You remember that movie, Defending Your Life?
of course.
Remember how they like go through all the bad mistakes you make in your life, and they say, like, there's one where they drop in on him saying, like, who's ever going to invest in Japanese technology? That's not a thing. And I just feel like for all those people who said no to the Queen's Gambit when you, Bill, brought it to them 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they're going to have that moment at the end of their life where they're like, no one will ever want to watch a story about a girl playing chess.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great regret of their life.
Well, hopefully if they're watching now, it's just sinking in a little bit more deeply how poor their decisions were, right? Well, I want to congratulate all of you on your incredible hard work and the much deserved accolades for the show, and all the awards coming up. Whatever happens at those shows, I think you've impressed upon the world the value of this story. And I have a feeling this show is going to be when people go into pitch, it's like Queen's Gambit meets, and then, now it's going to be part of the pitch process. Thank you all for your time.
Virtual hug.
Yes, virtual hug. Stay well, stay safe. We can't wait to see what you all do next.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today for this very special PaleyFest conversation with members of the wonderful cast and creative team of Netflix's The Queen's Gambit. And thank you so much to PaleyFest's official card, Citi, and festival sponsor, Verizon. You can learn more about the Paley Center by visiting paleycenter.org. Thank you so much. Take care and stay well.